Well, folks, it is, wow, I look even more bedraggled than normal. Hang on a second, now I've got things going everywhere. Is that better? Yeah, sort of. Whatever. Hi. Was that supposed to be over there? Wait. Yeah, it's there. Anyway, it's actually Friday night. It's pretty late. I've got about 20 minutes left before it's Saturday. It's been a long, busy day, another long, busy Friday, and here I am, finally getting around to doing this. Busy day, busy week, lots going on. Well, how do you want to do it? Well, you know what we could do first? We could do wrist check. Okay, like this, it's kimono fabric, Edo period, really nice. I like it. Anyway, wrist check 2. I can't take it off, so that's all I've really been wearing since I got home. This is my Lejour 7500. These are known as the poor man's Hoyer, because they were made by Hoyer, and that's what the back looks like. With no serial number, it just says 7500. It's a beautifully bead blasted, all stainless case. This is the correct original bracelet for it. I bought this a few years ago, thinking, yeah, God, that's what I paid for it wasn't a ton of money, relatively speaking, but I still kind of hurt a little bit at the time. But I've never been unhappy that I bought it. It's always been a good purchase. So it's a Valju 7750. This is essentially a Hoyer Pasadena. It is, as far as anyone knows, these were wholly made by Hoyer. And this Lejour dude was some guy who sold watches out of a Xeroxed like camera catalog that was mailed out of like New York, and these were for sale in the back. They had this model, then they had a PVD one. The PVD ones are easier to find, but they're just always so ratty looking. This version with the bead blasted, that's where it's at. Absolutely one of my favorite watches. I was wearing this watch when my dad died. So that is, thankfully, part of the reason why it never got sold. Gosh, what a watch. Hard to find in this condition now. On the other wrist, testing and thinking about and looking at the Seiko 7016 5029. So this is one of the Seiko models that's called the Monaco, due to the sort of the squarish case. This one's all original. I'm just kind of wearing it. I love Dyne chrono technology. Hey, look at that. I got a bonk on that brand new NOS crystal. I like the way they look very, very much. I think there's something about hang on a second. There is something about there it is. There's something about the bracelet. It feels even more rattly than normal for me. So I'm never 100% sure about changing out a bracelet if it's the stock correct original one, because then I feel like kind of I should be trying to get to know the watch as it was intended to be. But I think that this watch would really benefit from a different bracelet. It's preventing me from really enjoying it. Oh, also my hour and minute handset, the white stripes on them kind of just came off, and I need a new handset or a close equivalent. I haven't quite given up on finding the correct one, but hopefully I will. See, that is one advantage about having an acrylic crystal versus hardlex, because that's gone. A little bit of flitz, stuff I love now. And there she is. So, there you go. A double, what? Wait, oh yeah, double chrono night. cool.
I don't know. Yeah, look at my hair. I mean, God, it's almost past bedtime anyway. Normally it brushes back and I look sort of tousled. I don't normally look like I just stepped out of a windstorm. Okay. Anyway, man, those are cool watches. I've just never had an opportunity to wear one for so long. This is the first one I've ever owned. It's got beautiful casework. I've never been 100% sure about this kind of snap together clamshell case. It always feels a little less secure to me, even though I know perfectly well, having seen a lot of these, this is actually an extremely good watertight design. Like, this is a good design. And it keeps well. The problem is if the acrylic crystal cracks, and then you can have all kinds of problems. So, I mean, I haven't answered questions for a couple of weeks now, because I was on vacation. There were billion questions, 2.5 weeks worth of questions. I had a lot of questions. I was basically going to answer darn near all of them, but it's almost, look at the time. It's almost midnight. Okay, so I picked a few that I thought people might be interested in. Oh, also, I'm going to have, so I have some questions, and then once those are done, I have a couple segments in the end. One about old man bands and old man watches. I found something that was interesting. But there's a longer segment where I go through and I look at the Blue Jumbo. Here's a picture to remind yourself. So anyway, yeah, I pulled that thing out and I wanted to find out what the deal was. And I figured out what the hell people might be interested in knowing what I find. So I turned on the camera and I just started going through it. And, you know, frankly, I just started... The person that I'm speaking to in my mind when I'm doing this is, you know, members of my family. And so I'm having sort of a conversation, basically a one-sided one, because there's nobody here but me. But... So that's what I'm doing. I'm just kind of mindlessly blathering. Okay. So I do have some questions. Duncan. Hi, Spencer. Hello, Duncan. I love almost all watches. Okay. What are your thoughts on the trend over the last 15, 20 years to make watches bigger and more blinged out? I love Rolex, but everyone's going crazy over their latest releases this week, which seem to me to be bigger and shinier, etc. I see hard edges, shininess, bigger numerals. Look at the numbers on rotating bezels now compared to 20 years ago. I'm beginning to think it's all nonsense and has nothing to do with timekeeping. Oh yeah. I read a sociological study the other week, a new one, talking about the relationship of basically what people are going for in terms of trying to get ahead in life. And, you know, greed and all that other kind of crap. But we are hierarchical creatures, and we determine our hierarchy, which is central to our social structure. We determine a hierarchy, our status, based on things that are around us or things that we own. Status is so important to our species. We're not even really aware of it. And we're always jockeying for position. People always want to find something that they can status up one way or the other. And if one is a particularly, you know, you want to make sure that people know that you are flaunting your wealth, that you've made it. You know, a gigantic, ridiculously blingy Rolex would do that. You know, it is what it is. They're fashion pieces. I mean, I have, as you all know, I've got a couple of Rolexes over there, but they wouldn't draw a single glance from anybody, because when those were made, they were just watches. I don't know, I'm kind of surprised Rolex is going this direction, to be honest. I think of like the gigantic watch time as being like, I don't know, early 2000s to maybe 5 years ago, maybe more, but not too much longer back. And things were getting bigger and weirder and more like really out there, really baroque. But that really started necking down, at least to my mind. And then, of course, Rolex came out with the so-called fat cases. Instead of the standard old school, you know, Rolex sub design, they to try to catch this trend, Rolex made the case they couldn't really change the fundamental thing, otherwise it wouldn't look like a sub. So they made the lugs thicker. They made the whole case beefier. And I was like, God, it's really strange. I never would have thought that Rolex would have followed that kind of trend. And but you know, what do I know? But yeah, the way that they look really, really flashy. And the last thing I want to do is have something on my wrist that says, hey, I spent a lot of money on this. I don't know, man, it's not for me. But it's for other people, so what? Okay, y'all remember talking about GMT watches, right? All the different 6117s and the 6217 World Times and all that other kind of stuff. We had a couple of roll-ons. Hang on just one second. Pardon me. Okay, so Keith Roll, if you'll remember, or you may not, he's an airline pilot. I believe he's retired. But talking about GMTs and how they work, this may be redundant. The Rolex Reference 6542 GMT Master was produced in 1954 as a collaboration between Rolex and Pan American Airlines for their pilots. As a retired pilot, parentheses, yeah, I own a root beer GMT Master too, close parentheses, I can explain that since we crossed time zones, all of our operations were conducted based on GMC, parentheses, UTC, close parentheses, time. All weather reports, important info, etc. is issued based on same as is navigation and associated database updates. With the rotating bezel, you can display a third time zone for local time when you're obviously outside your home time zone. Everyone who navigates, brackets, especially important with chips GPS et al. Close brackets, uses GMT. Cool. That's neat. I had a 16750 root beer, and it was just a little too flashy for me, but it was such a beautiful watch. And I did that watch myself, and God, was it accurate. It's just annoying. It shouldn't be, though, none of those watches should be worth that much money. You should be able to wear them. So, to follow up on this GMT question, Mr. James Duffy of the Sandwich Time channel. Hi, Spencer. I sent a few questions on Instagram in the last 2 weeks. Not sure if you read them yet. I always do. I love all this GMT talk. I agree with Saul Brooks' take on the term GMT for what is the general catch-all for any dual-time complication. It only sounds like an accurate term if the fourth timekeeping hand can be set to the time in Greenwich, or if the hand is slaved to the hour hand and the wearer lives along the prime meridian. Then again, I'm not surprised when I see Eurocentric ideas, not making a woke comment, but recognizing how the watch industry as we know it has its roots in Europe, and how English and French are the predominant languages of the industry. Thanks for another great mail call. Great, that's great input. I don't know, I think it's really interesting. Wearing my glycine was a lot of fun. It was a great choice for that trip. It really was. It was a fantastic choice for that trip. And I'm extremely glad that I got a window of opportunity to reevaluate that watch, because I had liked it, and when I first got it years ago, I thought it was cool, but then, I don't know, it just felt like it was too big to me. It's hard for me to explain. There was something about it I didn't like, but I'm pretty sure it boils down to I didn't have it on the original strap. When it was on the original strap, it looks aces. But I really I do enjoy wearing it and learning more. Speaking of the glycine, so I have a segment. I had a segment, what, 2 mail calls ago? I don't remember. About trying to figure out how much time the glycine had gained or lost, and I was a little fried when I was making that section of the video. So I didn't do very good arithmetic. Rick says, welcome back home. Thank you. It looks to me like the glycine only gained about 10 seconds. I think you might be thrown off by the 24-hour markings on the dial. And you had 3 other regular commenters agree with you, so I'm going to trust that that is the case. It's interesting, don't you think? Because I thought I was losing a bunch of time, right? But that somehow I gained time? It must be, there must be something dial up or dial down that makes it different. Kind of warm in here, isn't it? Not hot, but certainly warm. They say that when you lose weight, you become more sensitive to the cold, and I've noticed that some. But I wonder if it's offset by having more insulation on my head in the terms of hair. I had a dream the other night. I shaved it, and I told Sabrina when I woke up, and she was like, "I would be so angry if you shaved that." Okay, man, I don't have to look at myself, so whatever. Tom N. Hi, Spencer. Question. What's the optimal and minimum acceptable amplitudes for Seiko movements? Thanks. Well, that's a big question. Depends on the movement family, depends on the era. You can get different amplitudes in the same family that have a different complement of jewels. I've noticed that I consistently get slightly lower amplitude out of a 6119 than I do out of a 6106. Probably because it's a tighter build because of the diafix settings, but that's just a theory. Those are the only real differences between them, and I rebuild them the same way. But the 6119s always seem to drop a little bit. It's rare to have one that really flies. So like for those, like a 6106, you should be able to see it in the 240s. Hang on. I hear you. Yes, I know. Okay, so, I mean, ideally in the 240s. 6119s are usually a little bit lower than that. 6139s. Any of the 6000 series should be about in that range. 6159s, I can't remember the last time I saw any 6159 giving me numbers any higher than like 220, 230 on a good day. It could be that the lift angle I have is wrong, but it's been very consistent all the years that I've been working on them, with I think only one exception, which is a watch that was essentially never worn, and after service it did pretty decently, but even that one was really only cruising in the 240s. For 7000 series, 7005, 7006, those movements are fantastic. Oh, I should, when I say that range, so if I say 220, 230, there's going to be some fuzz up and down. Anything really below 220, if I can verify that things are correct, that's getting kind of dicey. I want it to be higher. Now the 7000 series, unlike the 6000 series, those will tend to be in good condition. They'll run like a modern one. They'll run at 270, 275 easily all day long. Minimum on those, I mean, they should run well. If you're getting numbers in like the 230s and 240s on one of those, it's something's funky, but I mean, they're just beautifully made, and the movement designs are fantastic. So when they start dropping amplitude when something's wrong. Other than that, they tend to run like race cars. 5100 series, they can be dialed in real tight. I usually see those in the 260s and 270s. Same for the 5.6s. 5.2s, I do them so rarely I don't remember. But they should be good and high, those, because they're sort of more of a Swiss style thing. The 6200 series, those will cruise all day long at like 270, 280. It's amazing, just all day long. 18,000, BPH, just slowly chugging along. And in good condition, they've got this big balance and this big hairspring, and so it has this just wonderful elasticity to it. It doesn't look frantic at all. And a 6200 movement is just flat and smooth and steady and no fuss and no problems, and they'll run like that forever. They're fantastic movements. True also really of the 6619s. The 66 family is an extremely good, solid family. They're very good old style movement families that Seiko produced during a time when they were doing everything they could to match up with the Swiss. And they really were not really cutting corners. They were making some nice stuff. Any of these models, again, I mean, if you're getting in the 230s and 240s, whatever, that's fine. At that point, when it starts getting a little wiggly, look at your timekeeping, look at your numbers, and see if it's flat. And the numbers will tell you. If you're getting consistent, number two, that's another thing. If the amplitude's always going to go up and down. There's always stuff shifting. But big jumps, if you start if you start getting jumps where it's dropping and rising, 10 or 15 points either way, there's something dragging. Yep, see, just a few minutes before midnight. For those of you keeping score at home. Anyway, there's a lot more other movements. Generally, I don't want to ever go. The only movement I can think of, is the 8300s. They tend to run in the 260s, 250s, 260s. King Seikos, like the 45s, those go and they just blast along. Usually in the 280 range. Belmatics are the only ones that you gotta kind of get funky with, because they're the ones that they can overbank if they have too much power running through them. I just remembered I had a complete eureka moment about the Belmatics when we were somewhere doing something, and I was thinking about them, and I was like, that's why they overbank, and I forgot. You see, one of the weird things about having ADHD like I do, and I'm only just realizing this now, I just can't take notes. I can't write things. Not that I can't, it's just I rarely do it, and when I do it, it's wrong, and it just doesn't seem to be helpful. So I have to memorize everything, which means I forget a lot of things. Yeah, so I have to remember. I had an inspiration, I thought, and I had an idea why that might have been. It could be, the one time I do remember with that is changing the mainspring on an overbanker dropped the numbers. And what you can do too is if the bridle on the mainspring, if it's gripping too much, the Seiko instructions are to take that bridle. It's like you have the mainspring curls like so. And then it has this piece that goes in opposite direction like a C. It's meant to, reverse fold and then be the gripper, the brake on the inside of the barrel. And if it's grabbing too much, the instructions are just to flatten the edge, so the tips, so that they're not angled in as much and it doesn't grip as hard, which means that it'll allow a little bit more slip of the barrel. That's another cure. So I think that might have been it, is that I remembered that there was that one, it was so long ago, and it was overbanking like freaking crazy. It was driving me nuts to the point it just kept doing it. So I was like, you know what? Let's do a test, because I had completely cleaned it. It was totally clean. So I pulled it apart. I pulled the mainspring barrel out completely, and I went and got one from the Belmatic drawer that was the mainspring was unserviced. It had never been opened. It had nasty old grease in it. And just for fun, I popped it in there, and the amplitude is fine. Even with an old gross thing, there was something about that barrel that was allowing, basically the barrel was communicating too much power through the train at full wind. It did not do that with the old unserviced barrel. And after I was done with that, I went and actually serviced that barrel and put it back in, and I got better numbers, but again, it was fine. That one held. You see, like I said, it's just the problem. I have to remember everything, and if I don't remember it, then it's gone. Because I don't have any, I've never written any of the stuff down that I know. My loom recipes, paint recipes, repair tips and tricks, chemicals I use, how I make my stuff, I've literally never written down anything. It's never even occurred to me to write it down. I don't have a physical notebook. I don't even have a digital notebook. Everything I know is in my head. And so, I don't know, maybe this is the best kind of record I can have. It never occurred to me. It literally never occurred to me, like till this moment. Like sitting here, I'm like, why haven't I been writing this stuff down? Why don't I have a binder over there with my notes in it? Because I never take notes. It's really weird, man, to realize you've been running through life with one of the major tools in one's inventory for learning completely unavailable. Blake Taylor. Question for mail call next week. Big fan of the Seiko 7A chrono movement. and I just discovered what appears to be the ETA counterpart, 251.262. Newer version is 251.264. Any experience with these movements and their quality or how they might stack up with the 7A? Specs were impressive. Thanks for your time. I don't know the first thing about them, and so I actually went and looked them up. They're like 27 joules. So clearly somebody saw Seiko's number game with 15 joules and said, okay, we're going to do it. And they went 27 joules. It's interesting. I've never heard of them. I looked at the chronographs that they were used in, and they're kind of middle-of-the-road stuff. Nothing high-end that I'm aware of. I mean, I didn't do a deep dive, but they're 27 joules. It looks like a typical ETA movement. They're really built light and thin. I mean, the thing about a Seiko 7A, when I make my determinations about why I love that movement so much, it's not just so much the jeweling or the precision of them or their status as the first analog quartz chronograph. They are really, really sturdily built. They're really heavily built, not light little teeny bits of, stamped metal folded that kind of click together. No. The whole thing is a combination of milled and stamped and screwed together. So, I don't know. I suspect that the ETA movement's going to have a ton of plastic in it. I don't know. But I mean, if you were going to go ape on jeweling something, I don't know. You know what? I'll have to get one. I'll have to look at one and actually get one here and see if I can look at it. But I don't know, man. I from what I saw, I was not any more impressed about the idea. Basically, I didn't downgrade 7As at all, but I'm still kind of ignorant. I'm still mostly ignorant about these ETAs, but I'll keep pushing because I want to know. Speedy Paul. Hope you enjoyed the break. I sure did. Beach day was great. It was a good day. Though we were down there at Patrick Space Force. That was the base right behind us, and the Space Force just got, like, yesterday or the day before, got an additional $22 billion of funding or something to have like orbital traffic control and also some kind of traffic control between the Earth and the Moon or something. So that area that we were at, I mean, it was kind of sleepy. I mean, it wasn't quite to the thing of where it said, Patrick Air Force Base, where they had just like taken a pencil and scribbled out air and wrote space. It wasn't quite that crude, but it had a real sleepy feeling to me. I bet it won't come going forward. I bet that's going to be a real place. That long, empty beach, nobody there on a weekend, that won't happen again. Maybe not. Though we have MZ. Hey, Spencer. Hello, MZ. Is that a 1973/74 MGB GT behind you? It is an MGB GT, and it is behind me, actually. It's through that wall. It's not a 73/74. I wish it was a 73. I love the 73s. It's a 69. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to hybridize it. So the 69s have a dash I don't like, but they're the last year, I believe, of the good taillights, the taillights that show the original Pininfarina design of the back, which is literally, they're teeny tiny fins. It's like a little curved fin. After this, they got kind of the big plastic square ones, kind of like Super Beetles, but taller, and you sort of lose that fin feeling. It just looks like a rear tail. But the dashes on the 69s are terrible. I hate them. They're these weird squishy pillow things for safety. So I actually have a complete dash from a 67, which is the early one with, like, it's got the cowling around the instrument panel, and it's old school, with the crinkle black finish and manual switches. That's what I'm gonna do. It's gonna be cool, and that means I'm gonna have the entire console piece underneath, which in the standard one would have been for a radio, and I'm gonna put all kinds of weird gauges down there. Okay. Last, James, aka 626 Chevelle. My son, by the way, he loves Chevelles. His number one, he wants a 64 Chevelle. So if you have one sitting around back of the house, a couple, 2, 3 of them sitting around, you don't need them, let me know. James, I look at some of these watches like classic cars. They are what got me into watches. There are some cars that have been completely abused with cancer that require aftermarket or fake parts to get them back to road or even show-worthy. People didn't care of their Mustangs and Seikos like they did with their Porsches and Rolexes. That's true, unless you're my great uncle. So great original Seikos are getting harder to find in time. So should we not restore these Mustangs or Seikos because they are so trashed, or use aftermarket parts to bring them back to their glory versus the trash and cost? You're going to pay triple or double for a good original also. I don't know, it's tough. My dividing line. Does Seiko provide the part? No. How important is the part to the value? Well, anything cosmetic is going to be big. What is the quality of the reproduction? If the quality of the reproduction is excellent, then it's the fine. Like, I have a lot of the MGB out there. It has some rust, not a ton, just most of it. And so, but you can get replacement panels that are made by MG people with original style jigs and everything, and they're perfect. Yeah, they're not original, but they're as close to it as we can get, and that's pretty good. I saw a YouTube video a year and a half ago. This dude's dad had been prepping for his dream project for the entirety of his life, that he was going to be his retirement project, and he just kept collecting stuff, and he never got around to it. And then he died, and then his project car, which was out back of his garage, and all of the extra parts which were in the garage just sat there and sat there and sat there. It was a 1969 fastback, but it was an original. It was one of the models painted in Hertz rental car colors. Hertz had a number of them, thinking that they were going to be a big rental piece. And for some reason that year was not a popular seller, and so it was kind of a bust. So, I mean, these were cars you could go to Hertz, right? And you'd be like, ooh, look at that Mustang in Hertz colors, I want to get that. This was one of those, but it had been sitting outside in like Pennsylvania or Virginia or something like that for like 25 or 30 years, like on the dirt, in the grass, this thing. And like the bottom, they got it up, they got it off the grass, and as they were pulling it forward, like sections of the bodywork were ripping off of the bottom. The dad had everything. He had all these crazy parts, original parts that he'd squirreled away and hoarded away. But they got the thing down there to this Mustang repair guy, and he's looking at it, and he finds the numbers, they're looking at the number plates, and he's looking at everything, and yeah, it looks like a job to me, and he's like, these number plates are pretty much going to be the only things that are left. And it's like, even the upper part of the car, I mean, it wasn't that damaged, but they were basically going to rip out and replace everything. Except the number plates. At that point, I'm like, what are you talking about? But I don't know, it's tough. I looked on eBay couple days ago. I was trying to find something else, and I started looking at some of the replacement dials, the new aftermarket dials that are made for the 6139s, and I came across one of the ones for a silver 6139, and I was looking at it, I'm like, they're getting real good. They're getting real good. The only things I could see that were truly wrong is, again, the applied Seiko logo was kind of, the edges weren't quite as crisp as they should be. They just looked, the whole thing looked ever so slightly melted. Seiko stuff is so precise. And the second thing is that the loom had this kind of semi-translucent white, sort of a glass look, like white frosted glass. And it shouldn't look like that. It should look like, you know, absolutely matte, fairly large-grained white stuff. But if it wasn't for those two things, they'd be really good. And if I could get one of those, and I reloomed it with my loom, and I put a genuine Seiko applied logo in there, I'd have a really hard time not justifying using it, because it would not only look essentially just like the originals, I wouldn't have to worry about it, because I can replace it. I mean, it's one of the reasons I've had so many of those silver dials. I've sold them all. The reason I've sold them all is that I couldn't get replacement parts if something went wrong, and they're too valuable to mess around with. So that's the thing. I'd certainly consider it. I absolutely do. I have watches that I could put a silver dial into that would look, and it would save them. It would make them, instead of being, you know, hanger queens and parts watches over there, not that I would part them out, it's the difference between them sitting over there rotting and being on someone's wrist. I'll use that aftermarket dial all day long. Basically, if you can't get the original part and the reproduction is so good it can stand in for the original replacement part, go for it. Okay, so I am now going to put in the other stuff. So we're going to go back in time to last night. We're going to dig into the blue jumbo and we're going to see what the problem is. And then, I believe this comes later, there we will, I found a great old man watch on an old man band, and ow, damn. And I'll show it to you. But other than that, folks, you have a better one.
Ooh, well, it is, it's pretty late on Thursday night. Done a lot of worky things, but I try to put aside some time during the week to, like, you know, work on my own stuff. So this, for those who are curious, this is the Blue Jumbo 6138 3005 that crapped out on me in Florida. I did find the issue. I don't know why it didn't occur to me. I'm off my game. It's been so long since I've seen this, and it's just not, because normally I would never, for whatever reason, the center section of the chronograph wheel right here, the fourth wheel section, was not spinning independently of the pinion. So that meant that it simply couldn't turn now, and when, therefore, if it was stopped, pardon me, the whole thing would stop. Now I haven't, I don't think I've ever missed, lubricating one of these things, and I know I have my testing procedures for checking the train, chrono stopped, chrono running. I don't know how that would have happened. So if I was wanting to be real thorough, I'd want to look at that chronograph wheel and see what that deal was. But what I really want to do is just bolt it together and see how it's going. I put this one together pretty fast when we were getting ready to go to Florida because I knew I wanted to wear it. I mean, it's possible I just went for it, but, you know, who knows. But that is why it's so important to follow your own process. It's interesting, though. I mean, this thing is, that lubrication point and that failure point is so important. I remember the old watch maker, Watchsmith here in town, that I got all my stuff from. He talked about. Hang on just one second. Well, I was just at the. I was over there one day and I was just talking to him about Seiko stuff, and I wasn't like picking his brain or anything. We were really just chatting. But I mean, the dude was 80 something even at that point, and he was Rolex and Omega trained. He was the real deal. But he looked at me and he said, "Well, I want to clean that port." And he immediately asked me if that lubrication had been done, because the watch was having some hesitancy about something or other. And I was amazed that he pulled that from memory. And I was like, wow, that's wild. Speaking of memory, I realized that I have been laboring my entire life without... I never thought it was a big deal because it was just the way it was. I can't take notes. I've never been able to take notes. It's trippy. It's an ADHD thing. I can't take notes. I can take notes or I can listen. But even if I'm taking notes, I'm so poor at on-the-fly organizing that whatever I end up writing down would just be gobbledygook. It wouldn't mean anything. And so I must have started at a very young age, because I've always been like this. I just memorize everything. I couldn't believe it. It was like a revelation. Like last night, I'm like, I've never considered that. I never write notes, never. Very rare for me to do so. Like, it's one of the reasons I do all these videos extemporaneously. It's because I'm not gonna sit down and write out a dialogue or any of that kind of stuff. It's hard enough for me to make myself sit down and copy over the questions. But that blew me away, because all of a sudden I'm like, I have been operating since school, since I was a child, without notes, entirely on memory. And people used to say, wow, man, where'd you get your memory from anyway? And I'm like, I don't know. I have the same memories as everybody else, so no idea. But maybe, I do have some more practice on memorizing things, which is just the craziest thing, because it's like, though it does kind of explain why I did well in classes I enjoyed, because I'd be actively listening. I wouldn't be trying to take notes. I'd be taking part, and I could track it and I could memorize it on the fly. No wonder I sucked at math. Let's see. Oh, yes, balance. I was going to look at, no, only one variable at a time. One variable at a time. Don't change more than one thing at a time. Because if you do, you'll never quite be sure that you actually found the cause. Maybe it was the one thing, maybe it was the other. Come on now. Wakey, wakey. Chicken bakey. Chicken. That is one nice thing. Favorite things about cold days, and we only have a few of them left. Roasting a chicken. Okay, so that's looking pretty clean. It looks like I've got some okay numbers going on there. I mean, I haven't checked. It's just an eye thing, but make sure I've got some. I don't, because I did actually clean this, and yes, of course, I lubed it, but you never know. And why is there hair there? Okay, that's gone. Let us. Just want to make sure we got a. Yo, for real? Oh, okay, hang on. Oh, it's a little stiffer than I like. That's what she said. No, that alignment's correct. No, that's right. I was thinking that maybe this alignment was incorrect. The minute wheel, the fingers are supposed to be 3, like a W. Bub, 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 bub. Okay, well, I'm going to bolt this thing back together, and we will see what I come up with. Okay. I'm kind of going at it on the fly here. Observe. But you know what? If something goes wrong, I do not have to go far to yell at the person who did the crappy work, because I did it. Let's do that. Got this. Put that down. We're going to move this. And I'm going to grab that. And I'm going to put this there. And I'm going to go over here with this thing. And I'm going to blow that out. And then I'm going to pick this thing up. And then I'm going to go over here. And I'm going to put this thing inside the other thing. Oh, my chapter ring is misaligned. That don't help nobody. Come on, Lord Vader, rise. I'm convinced, by the way, Star Wars fans, I'm convinced that one of the reasons Star Wars is still so popular and has a crazily devoted fan base is because so much of it is so crappy. And it's like you have, there's Star Wars, when it's good, oh man, it is good. But, when it sucks, it's just terrible. And, if you're like, a serious fan, I'm not claiming to be a serious fan, but if one is a serious fan, one is therefore, you kind of got your situation where you got to defend stuff.
You know, gotta go in there and, you know, stand up for the, you know, for the weaker material and advocate for the stronger material, right? Well, I think it's a fairly well-known psychological phenomena that arguing a position for or against, you can actually unknowingly convince yourself, sell yourself on the deal. So all these Star Wars fans, you know, from, you know, Return of the Jedi on, or maybe even before then, all these Star Wars fans being forced, but especially with the prequels, right? Being forced to just go on a constant public, you know, spree of defending anything that comes out. So yeah, you know, some of the stuff is garbage, all right, fine, but look at the big picture. So you have all these people advocating for good Star Wars, and they're in effect convincing themselves and getting themselves really like into it. And you know, maybe that increases their overall level of fandom. So maybe if Star Wars wasn't so haphazard and cheesy, it would not nearly have been as successful. I wonder if that's true. I don't know that it is, but I think it's an interesting idea. Yeah, no notes. Can't take notes. Have to memorize everything. It's just like, it's like, you know, again, that old cliche, asking a fish about water, but it never occurred to me that I'm basically missing, like, it's just bananas. I thought I was just, you know, disorganized and, you know, muddle-headed and just couldn't get my brain in line to take notes or be organized. And, you know, that's just the way that it was. But it wasn't, and that belittles how serious it was for me. I mean, can you imagine trying to get through college without being able to study? I'm not patting myself on the back. That's not what I'm doing. I'm just like, that's sometimes, you know, I'm going to have to give myself a pat on the back, though, because, man, I got this far despite this. I mean, that's just wild. I wonder if it's kind of like that thing where, you know, that trope, if, you know, you lose one sense, another one, you know, steps up to carry the load. And I'm like, I wonder then, my memory stepped up. I mean, it makes sense to me. But it could also just be that my memory stepped up because I was forced to use it all the time because I couldn't write down notes. What a life. Well, anyway, it's a good one. And I'm happy where I am, and things are okay. God, man. Luke, come on. Oh, I think that's one of the old ones. It's got a hair on it. You know, our cat Milo, he's been dead for just over a year. And I am literally, no joke, I am still finding Milo hairs everywhere. I find one almost every day. We used to brush him ferociously out on the deck when it was windy, you know, with one of those Furminator things. And it would be like so much hair would be coming off of him. It looked like smoke. He was an orange cat, so it was kind of like a lot of white fur, and he was really dense, and he had a lot of it. And he would just, you know, he just let me, you know, go to town on him with the Furminator, and it's just, it would all just sail up and sail away into the sky. You know, all this like white drapery of Milo hair going up into the atmosphere. I wonder how far some of that stuff traveled. I know that, you know, microbes like algae and things that came off of the ocean surface have been found on the surface of the International Space Station. You know, what's to say there isn't a Milo hair up there too? I mean, it makes as much sense as anything else. I hope so. That would be great. I wonder, now, would a Milo hair, they're incredibly fine. Some of them are super fine, some of them are thick, but boy, he had a lot of them. So here's the thing. If you have Milo hairs, a pretty good floaty cat hair thing, Doesn't have a whole lot of mass. Would it burn up on re-entry or just float down? So that's for you people of a physics turn of mind. Okay, well, it is clearly still running. Yeah, would Milo's hairs, do they have enough mass to gain enough velocity so that when they hit the, well, I'm supposed to, because if they're in vacuum, their mass doesn't matter. Mass versus surface area doesn't matter because there's no atmosphere to hold anything back. A feather and a hammer fall at the same speed, which means Milo hair falling at 10,000 miles an hour, or whatever, 12,000 kilometers an hour, whatever the heck it is, you know, it's not going to work out. Not going to work out. This is the incorrect movement spring. I didn't have the right one, so I had to kind of mod another one. I don't like doing it. It's, you know, you got to have something. Okay. Bum bum boop doop 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 bum bum boop doop doop boop doop 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 boom doop 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 boom boom. I'm happy about a lot of things. It's nice. I have this weird hopeful feeling. I don't know why. I've been thinking world events, maybe something's changing, maybe things are changing. Maybe the era is changing, it's swapping over. Maybe the old ways are finally on their way out. The world won't have to worry about nuclear Armageddon if this goes the way that I think it's going to go. And I was thinking about that last night. I was like, I cannot imagine living in a world where I did not have to worry about Russian nuclear subs. You know, but if this whole thing happens the way it's starting to look like it's going to happen, Russia isn't going to, they'll be lucky to have traffic cops. They're not going to have a military. They won't be able to do anything. No one will care anyway. They could shout and scream all they wanted. No one's going to give a damn. Hell, like, what is it, last week? The Poles, there was a Soviet monument in some Polish town, and the 3 local politicians got together, and they stood there explaining what was going on while they were having the thing demolished right behind them. And, you know, they talked for some time about this, and, you know, and in the past, that would have triggered a really gnarly response, right, from Putin. Who doesn't like that kind of thing? He wants to revel in past glories. Anyway, so these 3 dudes are there, these Polish officials, and the third guy's like, you know, really, who cares? From what we've seen now, Russia's basically no consequence to us. Russia doesn't matter. We don't care. They can threaten us and they can say whatever they want. There's just nothing's going to happen. So they just don't care. Can you imagine being such a crazy, prideful person, you know, with such a thin skin like Putin certainly has? Oh, man, does he have a thin skin? Being basically, you know, not even rejected forcefully, which is a kind of admiration when you have an enemy go after you hard, but, you know, with just indifference, like you absolutely don't matter. Wow. That's going to be great. I'm looking forward to that. I really have, I mean, it's naive of me, but I have some hope and some fondness for the future. You know, the government of Ukraine is young. They're idealistic. They're having a nation-building event right now. This will be I mean, if it all goes out as it looks like it should, this could be the birth of 21st century Ukraine and different kind of Eastern Europe. Maybe it doesn't have to be nuclear subs in the dark waters, one ping only, Vasily. And maybe things will get better, huh? Maybe the people of Ukraine will feel better too. I mean, I know they have a lot of the same drug and alcohol and crime problems up in Russia, but you know, it's a pretty exhilarating thing for a people to have a victory like this. Everybody's pulling together. Everything's okay. They know they have the support of everybody in the world. They're going to win. They absolutely believe it. So do the Russians.
And I think it really could be something, you know? There's going to be jobs, there's going to be money, there's going to be opportunity. It's going to be the door to Europe, and everything's going to flow through Kiev now, not Moscow. I'm sorry, Kiev. Isn't that how you're supposed to pronounce it? Yep, Kiev is going to be the gateway, not Moscow. It's over. And they're going to have all that infrastructure and all the goodwill and the help putting everything together and all the legal help. Can you imagine? Man, if you are, I mean, they're doing facial recognition off of internet stuff. They're IDing individual Russian soldiers who've been ID'd for crimes. It's bananas. It not only is Putin, he's fighting the wrong war from the wrong century with tools that wouldn't have succeeded even then. I mean, can you believe the state of his military? It's bananas. But, you know, so he's going to a war with ancient weaponry, but it's not even the war, that kind of a war that's going to really kill him. He brought, you know, it's the online stuff, the world. He brought a flintlock to a LAN party. I don't, he's getting destroyed by 31-year-old technical ministers and stuff like that. It's like, you know, dude's behind the times. Let's see, where is that? Do I have those over here? Sorry, looking for gaskets. Is that over here? No, that's Arbor Repair. Oh, right, I rejiggered all the gaskets. Jeez, I've got to totally organize these. This is ridiculous. Yeah. So anyway, I have some hope. I actually was thinking, you know, when this is all done, you know, later on down the way, maybe it'd be nice to go and see. I've never seen that part of the world. I've been to Russia, but I have never been to Ukraine, and I think I'd like to see some of the sites. And boy, man, the war footage that you can see these days, I mean, not that I'm being ghoulish, but from a military history kind of interest thing, it's like I am seeing, there are real-time live videos of warfare that looks like it's straight out of World War II. It is bananas, the quality of, and just the documentation of it. It is nuts. It is nuts. I mean, I just saw one video of a small group of Ukrainian soldiers going through a village, and it had just been liberated from the Russians. And the people, it was just like those things when the American soldiers were getting to France and everybody was handing them bottles of wine. There were only like 7 or 8 villagers, but a girl comes out and she's like, here, have some apples, have some apples. And then the girl's father's like, please come have dinner with us. And then the girl's mother, who's this little dumpling who's looking over her fence, is like, please guys, take some apples. And people are talking, and it's crazy heartwarming. And but it's also, it's insane that that's really happening. Sorry, I'm babbling about it, but I was watching that clip. I'll put the link for it down there, maybe. But anyway, I was watching that clip, and it was just like, it was just surreal. Anyway, looking at Ukraine and thinking about the opportunities they're going to have in the future, all the things their goodwill that's going to come to them. You know, I just got this real hopeful feeling, and it'd be nice to go and see. But you have all these young people. Finally, you know, young people calling the shots, doing stuff, making changes instead of these dinosaurs sitting in office for ever and ever and ever and ever. You got all these young people with vision pushing, and they're going to make the change. They're already making the change. Putin is a dinosaur. The damned asteroid has already come down. He's just too slow to realize that he's dead. It's just, the whole thing was just absolutely stupid, unavoidable tragedy. What was he thinking? Who cares? But it's just awful. It shouldn't have to happen. That's the thing. That's the point. These wars, we should be past this. I'm hoping that this war will be, in effect, viewed as World War III, that this was the final act of the 108 years war from World War I. Though, of course, you can talk about other stuff like, you know, War of 1871. But that maybe this will be the last act. The last act. and then the world can, you know, maybe we can start moving on. Wow, that'd be great. I legitimately, you know, am grateful that I'm around to maybe see this, or at least be able to think about it. I never thought the day would come that the Russian army would just collapse. Folks, I sincerely believe that this is World War III. I sincerely do. I hope I'm correct in that it is, and it's going to be completely non-nuclear. Judging by everything else the Russians have put on the battlefield, I'm sure that their nuclear arsenal is just as impressive. I mean, that doesn't let them off the hook, but if one thing got fired off, it would not be good for anybody. But also, I mean, I've heard reports that just like the tanks in the storage depots that were taken apart, you know, all the metal ripped out and everything sold for scrap, I would not be shocked that if that nuclear arsenal was like that too. Russia technically has what, like 6,000 missiles, something like that. But they pay less, officially, they pay less for maintenance for those 6,000 missiles than the UK does for 200 missiles. So I think the math isn't right, or the money's going somewhere else. Anyway, that's it. I think that's fine. That's a nice watch, isn't it? We'll see. I don't think I'm going to do much more. Oh, I did want to do... Oh, darn it. I did want to do one other feature, but I'll make that separate. Well, will I make that? Yeah, I'll make it separately. Okay, now that I've got that together, remember last week we were talking about old man bands, the, you know, the old stretchy bands and that kind of stuff. I was looking for a picture of, you know, one of these old dudes, these World War II vets that wore this kind of stuff. I couldn't find anything that was identifiable. It was really annoying. I knew exactly what it was looking like, but then I was like, So I started digging through all of my crap, and I found a perfect example of the World War II, the American World War II vet watch setup in every respect. This is completely unrestored. It is filthy. The only reason I'm touching this is because I haven't washed my own hands yet, and they're already dirty, so what are you going to do? Timex. Old beat-up Timex on an old man band. And the old man band is, not only is it breaking down, it's been worn so much. This was high polish stainless steel. Looks like it got bead blasted because the guy just bonked it. These are dudes, and they would wear this thing day in and day out forever and ever and ever in a race to see who died first. My granddad wore stuff like this all the time. Takes a licking and thinks about ticking. Come on. Come on. Wakey, wakey. My feet are achy. Come on. Doesn't want to. Here, let's demag it. Oh God, Lord help me. My brain just said, hey man, maybe you should service that thing. Oh God, should I service a Timex? I've never done it. Is the hand caught there? Are we got us an issue here? Stick hands, non-loomed. It's almost acting like it's got a broken staff or escape wheel or something. But anyway, there it is. The classic old man watch on the old man band. Yeah, maybe I'll do that. I mean, you guys tell me what you think. You want to see me restore this thing? Woo!